Today's guest on my Best Life podcast is Michael Prosserman, a.k.a. BBoy Piecez, founder of Unity Charity that just celebrated their 10-year anniversary. Unity uses hip-hop to improve young people's lives, creating healthier communities across Canada. This is my Best Life podcast.
Engage your power, the future is ours. Skill, success, stress, express.
Welcome to my Best Life podcast with Flavia Abadia. We are a new inspirational and motivational podcast featuring people with positive mindsets achieving tremendous things with tips, advice, and life lessons to help you live your best life. Today's episode is brought to you by Crossrope, the highest quality jump rope system on the planet. Get in the best shape of your life today by going to crossrope.com/mybestlife and using the discount code MyBestLife at checkout for 10% off your order. Hello and welcome to my Best Life podcast. My name is Flavia Abadia and today's guest is Mike Prosserman, a.k.a. BBoy Piecez. He's the founder of Unity Charity, which helps empower youth in underserved communities by using hip-hop. So welcome.
Thank you.
First, tell us how you got into BBoying.
Yeah, so, it started when I was around 12 years old. And dance for me was pretty much my outlet for everything that was going on in my life. And I found this class actually. Well, first, even rewinding previous to that, I saw this guy like sort of do this spin move on his hands, and I'm like, holy crap, I need to do that. And when I saw it, it was actually the Boogie Brats. Now looking back, they're like a famous Canadian or international crew, but at the time I just was at like a bar mitzvah and I saw this guy do this thing and I'm like, oh my god, I need to learn how to do this move, right? And I used to walk around my house on my hands. I would do like gymnastics stuff and just super random weird kid. And when I saw breaking, I'm like, I need that. So I started trying to learn, and this is like before the YouTube days. So it was like literally breakdance.com text descriptions of like how to do moves. Oh yeah, there was no videos at that time. So I don't know if you can rewind back to that time,
like how would it say, like, I don't know, put your hand on the floor, dig your elbow into your hip?
Yeah,
I guess.
I wish it was that accurate, but it was like they were made up moves at times, like the ninja flip. Like I think anyone could add moves to it, so it was like kind of made up at times. And then the moves that you'd want to learn, like they just didn't make sense by text, and like there was no internet bandwidth to like do the video stuff. So yeah, it was interesting at best. Yeah,
because that's when internet was starting.
Yeah, like in 2000, like 1999, that time. And then YouTube wasn't even a thing at that time. But then I found a class. So Benzo from Bag of Tricks taught a class at what was Randolph at Young and Wellesley, and I'd go every Saturday and learn from Benzo, who became kind of a mentor to me and like a teacher, but also just a part of like brought me into the scene, you know, and brought me to parties and jams. And like I wasn't of age, so like my dad would come to jams and like sneak me in with and Benzo would be at the door like,
that's cool.
He's good.
You have a cool dad.
My dad's cool. Like
my parents wouldn't do that.
Really? Yeah. No, he's kind of like been the b-boy dad. Like before, now a lot of parents show up to jams, but like back in the day, like people didn't. Their parents just didn't support it. And still that's true for many people. But I find there's like a lot more parents now. And one of the guys in my crew jokes that like my dad made it okay for parents to come, so he made it like super less cool to be at these jams. But my dad's mad cool, and like he sort of at that time, because he was the only dad there, everyone almost felt like they were like he was their dad in a sense. So, and he was like always wearing like a graffiti Piecez hat, and like he was just really supportive, and it was cool. And
that's so nice.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't be doing all of this stuff if he didn't encourage me or even allow me to do this stuff. So yeah, I'm pretty thankful to have had him, which is kind of unique because that's not usually the case when it comes to breaking specifically. Like usually parents are like, what are you doing with your life?
I know, like, stop doing this, get into school, or
yeah. So he just always said to follow my passion and like do what I love, and that's sort of what led me down that path. And yeah, I'm really thankful to have had him as a mentor.
Nice.
At that time. Yeah.
So how did you even come up with the thought of Unity Charity?
Yeah, so I mean, Unity is kind of like the mix of my own personal story and just sort of all the things that I was passionate about in life. So taking dance, like breaking and hip hop, mental health, and just being part of a community and feeling like you have a positive way to express your stress, which breaking was for me in my life, and just wanting to do something that wasn't just business, like it was business in the terms of how like I organize something, and like I'm part of it and I create it, but it's for the good, not for like
not for profit and
capitalism, lack of a better word. So I took this like sort of entrepreneurial spirit, my passion for breaking and hip hop, and my sort of concern about mental health issues, and like smushed it all into one thing, which became Unity.
Nice. So can you explain for those who don't know what Unity Charity is, like what you guys do, your programs?
Yeah, so Unity uses hip hop with the goal of improving young people's lives and helping them create healthier communities. And what that means is essentially we use the elements of hip hop, so breaking, MCing, graffiti, and even some of the side elements like beatboxing, DJing. Well, DJing's one, but to empower young people with the tools to build confidence, but also become part of a community and have a voice that's bigger than them, or a voice that's bigger than what they previously had when maybe they didn't have something that they were like recognized positively for. They were always, looking for something, and hip hop became that thing. So hip hop can be a very empowering tool because it doesn't cost anything to be involved in it. All you need is your body, and at most like a pen and a piece of paper, or some paint. And to me, that's why like I think I resonated most with hip hop, is because it doesn't matter what your story is. It's sort of this place where you can all come together and deal with whatever you're going through without having to necessarily talk about it. It's this like expression that is, and this community that's bigger than any one person. So yeah, we use hip hop as a tool to empower young people, build confidence, and essentially build resilience. Now more specifically, our focus is on something we're calling mental health through the back door. So we're not calling it a hip hop mental health program, but a lot of the things that build resilience in youth, age 12 to 24, who are living in underserved communities, a lot of the things that build resilience in young people are actually embedded in what hip hop culture already is. So we don't even really have to change all that much to address or build resilience in young people. We just have to acknowledge it. And the facilitators who we train are now using a new lens where they're seeing the impact that they're having and realizing, hey, if I do more sort of self-reflection as part of what we're doing, or if I lead by example through my own body language, then young people will actually be taking that in. And that's actually like proven to make a difference in young people's resilience if they see positive role modeling, or people who they look up to making positive choices, or even speaking positively about themselves. This is all stuff that sort of reflects in their future life and the way they respond to difficult situations. So we're learning a lot about how hip hop can build resilience in young people.
Nice.
So yeah, I mean, I kind of jumped all over the place, but essentially to answer your other question, we provide free programs for young people 12 to 24 in underserved communities across Canada. So we have about anywhere between 25 and 30 weekly programs happening at one time.
Okay.
So today's Friday, we probably have 3 or 4 happening after school today. We have 2 streams of programming. So one stream is called Inspire, and the other stream is called Engage. And Inspire is kind of like our awareness building program where we do like a day-long take over a day of school. It's called
okay, cool.
Yeah, it's called a Unity Day.
Okay.
And we do workshops and performances and share our personal stories in the school setting.
Nice.
And it's kind of to promote our ongoing programs. And then our Engage programs are like our weekly sort of drop-ins where young people come back week after week, even year after year, to sort of learn how to dance or do spoken word or, do one of the art forms that we teach. And so they're kind of two different streams that are interconnected. And then often young people come back as staff or as artists who teach with us, like as they become alumni as well. And we're also pretty proud that although it's not our mission to be an artistic organization, we do hire the best hip hop artists in the country to facilitate the programs.
So you're giving careers to people who are passionate about this.
Yeah, and paid opportunities. Oftentimes, especially with the young and emerging artists, this might be their first time getting paid as an artist. And they're realizing that they can sort of supplement their income to be able to like be an artist, we call it artist educator because they're not just artists, promoting their art form. They're actually educating young people and understanding the responsibility that takes to like take it a step beyond just art, like their art form, So that's, I mean, in some senses, that's an essence of like what we do and what fuels the organization. But it's really every individual, like every individual who's in unity sort of fuels the ship, in the sense that without any one person, we would be a different organization. And what I mean by that is like every staff member, they might work, have their own artistic production that they do, but they bring their expertise of event planning or artist management or even finance and accounting. But when they come to Unity, it all gets contributed into this central sort of vision or set of values. So it's pretty cool. Like our team it's pretty amazing. Like
that's cool.
Proud of them. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
And it's taken a long time to build that. Like it started as a volunteer group in my basement. And
okay, how did you start? Like, because now it's across Canada, you have all these programs, but how did you initially start it?
Yeah, so it was originally just a show that I did in my high school. It was actually a high school class project where the teacher in my entrepreneurship class, his name is Mr. Izumi, and he gave us this project to like essentially create a venture, like a business venture that gives back to a charity. So I got our group together. I remember it was like Bobby, Ryan, and can't remember who the third member is. Maybe Luke. Luke. I don't think he showed up that much, but either way, it was us four, and we were brainstorming what we wanted to do, and we came up with this idea called Hip Hop Away from Violence, which was a show that would promote alternatives to violence through using art, hip hop, and music. So the first year we ran it in our cafeteria at the school, and it was kind of like a little bit of a bomb, like didn't go that well. People were like,
it was just a performance?
It was a performance, and like I'd invite some people who were willing to perform for free, and we weren't completely clear what the message was the first year. Where like I think just the idea of hip hop and anti-violence was sort of the theme, but I don't think we communicated it as well, nor did we promote the show properly, or did people really know what was going on. So we did okay, but we also didn't know if like what we were really doing at that time. So then the next year we're like, okay, it's a good idea, but we're not really hitting it. Let's organize this with more thought and more resources and more like, we know it's a good idea, but we need more.
Yeah.
Right. So in grade 12 for me, I joined student council and became the president of student council, and then like directed all the resources from student council that year to running this event and making it awesome. So
no money for anything else?
No money for anything else, but we made it happen. Yeah, it was a good production. But we also made sure like the artists who came out, we asked them if they were willing to volunteer. Like I literally Google searched just random artists across the city and just called them and said, hey, would you be willing to perform for this concert or whatever?
Cool.
And that one was a huge success. And that's when I knew like it went from like, this isn't a good idea, and we kind of didn't do a great job, to like, this is a good idea, and we saw the power that it could really have when it came out. So the second year was a huge success, and we decided to build off that success. And really the success was just like, young people were really listening and paying attention to these messages that were much better crafted in the second year.
Yeah.
And it was all done through hip hop.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and we also donated the proceeds from the event that were raised to a charity called Leave Out Violence, who I later joined their board of directors. And that's when I started to learn what a nonprofit was. And I'm like, maybe one day we should like make a nonprofit and take this thing, across Canada.
Cool.
Yeah. So that's where it kind of sparked. But I sat on the board of Love. That's what the name of the acronym. Leave Out Violence for about 3 years before I decided to actually say, okay, we're going to register this thing and like take it to the next level.
Okay. So once you registered it, did you start with like one program for?
No. So the reason we actually decided to register, and a lot of people ask me this question, like there's so many people trying to start nonprofits and organizations and even businesses sometimes. And they're like, should I register a nonprofit? Should I register a charity? And what I tell them is just like our story, which is essentially it took us like almost 6 years, 5-6 years until we actually registered a nonprofit. So we went through every form of registration before becoming a nonprofit. We were an unregistered group.
Okay.
We were a student club at York University. So we actually had a bank account at York. We were Unity at York. We were a program of another charity. So we actually became a program of Leave Out Violence while I was sitting on their board. We became trusteed by another charity, which essentially means the Phoenix Community Works Foundation used their charitable number to sort of accept donations on Unity's behalf.
Okay.
And then we finally registered a nonprofit. So like we literally did everything you could possibly do. And then we became a nonprofit when we knew that we were doing enough work and we were seeing enough impact that we're like, I think it's time to become our own entity. Okay. And what I mean by that is we were probably doing like 15 schools, like we sort of evolved the program. So the program wasn't just a performance now. It was like a performance where students from those individual schools would perform in the show with us. Okay. So we would bring like professional artists. We were also kids at the time. We called them professionals, but we were also just high school students. Yeah. And we would bring sort of our messaging and our stories and share our personal stories while before and after performing. But then we would have had the school prepare a show in advance. So the students from the school would organize a committee that would plan a performance or several performances with messages that are relevant to their particular school, and they'd perform them in between our performances. Okay. Yeah, and it just kept evolving. So we did that in about 14, 15 schools. It grew from like 1 to 2 to 5 to 10, etc. And then we started doing workshops. So then we're like, oh, it doesn't have to just be a performance where we're inspiring, but actually we can work one-on-one with young people or in a classroom setting. So we started doing workshops, then we started doing after school programs, then we started doing like community drop-ins where young people can come. So it just like evolved and evolved and evolved and evolved and evolved, and then it's kind of like what it became today. Yeah. So it's not really like, did I plan this or did I like think it was going to be this way? Absolutely not. It was just like we just put ourselves out there and kept following a thing that was working and then moving in this like general direction. I always say building the plane while flying it. Like, that's my little, yeah, it's like my little like
that'd
metaphor.
Be scary if it's like literal, like here.
Well, it is scary. Yeah, you're kind of building it and you're like, should I get a job? Shoot, I don't know. But at the same time, you know it's working. But it's scary because like day to day, you don't know if you're going to have enough money to pay people or if like you're going to do something that you shouldn't do because you don't know what the hell you're doing. You're just making it up. Yeah. But you're just kind of doing it and you're learning very quickly and like making mistakes. Like we made a lot of silly mistakes, but I think because we were self-taught and we didn't have like professionals, like non-profit professionals, which like, you know, exist. We were just kids making this stuff up and like we had a vision and a dream and we wanted to see it happen. So we just did whatever it took to like figure it out. We're like, oh, you can get your name on you can get your organization on a billboard. Cool. How do we do that? go to Clear Channel, ask them to donate ad space, get a designer who's a friend of ours to design the space. All of a sudden we have ads on billboards for free. Or like,
that's sick.
You know, how do you evaluate the impact of your programs? So we'd meet mentors who would, you know, give us their time and say, like, really develop a lot of mentorship relationships where they would sort of see their younger selves in us and be like, hey, one time I was trying to figure this out and we really don't know what we're doing. So a lot of people were willing to offer their time as mentors and consultants, and we were very coachable. Like, I would always try to meet people who would give us advice. So whether it was an HR professional, board of directors, accountants, lawyers, like school board trustees, evaluation people, like I just would like tap into this network of random people who I just met through other random people.
Yeah.
It's like this spider web network of people. And now the network is quite large. So yeah, I think the most valuable thing I ever did was just meeting people all the time.
Okay.
In 30-minute increments. I mean, even this, like
having meetings back to back.
Or sometimes I would, actually back to back.
Okay.
Yeah, back to back, which also was a source of a burnout episode I had. Because I didn't take care of myself. But aside from that, the positive side to it is we developed like a network of people from all walks of life, all expertise, ages, backgrounds, and they contributed, you know, whether they contributed one idea or like volunteered for an entire project. So we've had a lot of people, or we never work with them at all, but we were aware that they existed because I had a 30-minute meeting to know who runs Volunteer Toronto or who runs, you know, some of the other big arts organizations in the city. So these are sort of the things I do just to like create this interconnected web of things, and then all of a sudden we need to do something like run a festival, and we know, you know, someone who built stages and someone who, you know, can load in and out a truck who does that for their job, or like there's so many random skills, right? Yeah.
And what's the biggest lesson you've learned so far in this journey?
There's a lot. I would say just always having fun, you know. That's kind of one of the reasons I'm not necessarily leaving, but actually kind of like I'm getting a bit
stepping down from Unity now.
Bored. Yeah, like I'm just doing the same thing over and over and over again. And it's easy and it's comfortable, but usually like the easy thing is the wrong thing, and that's something my dad always said to me, and I was like, yeah, this feels like that thing coming to life, this idea that like if it's easy it's probably wrong. So I pushed myself to say I'm not really doing like as much as I used to innovating or creating. It was just really following now the yearly annual calendar that I know is kind of predictable. So I was like, you know what, I think I have to make a change, you know. And I did it in September. I told our board chair that I was stepping down, and then we subsequently announced it to the board and then to the staff and then to the artists, and then did this whole public announcement. And yeah, I've never felt better. Like I'm scared, honestly, because I don't have a job after this. But I know it's the right thing, and anytime I put myself in an uncomfortable situation with, you know, some level of logic, I would work my way out of it, right? So I believe that the same will be true for this, and I'm just trusting in like the universe to catch me. But it's scary, like it's intense to you know, my whole identity is connected to this thing, right?
Yeah, because it was the 10-year anniversary last year.
Technically 10 as a charity, but the high school days go back to 2003, so almost 15 years like unofficially. So it's kind of like I haven't done anything else in my working life.
Yeah, I guess, did you ever have a job in high school? Like
I worked for a marketing company for a bit. I worked at an office job as well, but like I knew I didn't want to do that type of stuff. Like I was selling cell phones in malls, and I was just like, I was really good at it. Like good at it, like getting the emails, and like sometimes I would be like really inappropriately saying, like if someone asked my opinion, I wouldn't lie to them. I'd be like they're like, would you use it? I'm like, probably not, but I think it's kind of cool still. And then they'd end up buying it because I was honest, not even though I told them that I didn't think the product was good. I'm like, this job is so weird. Like it's so weird. There was a video phone. I remember they were selling a video phone that before, like obviously now
there were cameras
on phones. It was literally a phone that you could video, but you could only video another person who had the video phone. And I'm just like, this is completely silly. Like it makes no sense. Like you actually have to buy 2 of these phones in order to use it, and the quality was terrible.
Yeah, cameras back then, on phones were pretty bad.
Yeah, but they even had those little cameras, but for some reason this camera could only connect to the camera of the exact same phone.
Okay.
And it bombed. Like it flopped, and this was the thing I was promoting for like pretty much a year, and it was just bad. I'm like, this like legit makes no sense, but like go into the store and find something else that you like. And I was demoing this thing, and I'm like, this is so, it's like so heart sucking and like soul sucking.
Yeah.
So I knew I could be good at that type of stuff, but I'm like, okay, I gotta do my own thing and sort of step up and, you know, go through all the motions of like learning. But otherwise I'm going to be stuck in some job where I just would be great at it, but I would hate it. And I hated it. I hated waking up. I hated all that, you know, getting to the door. And now, you know, I love what I do.
Yeah.
So it's really weird to leave it because I'm like, it's perfect.
Well, you followed your passion and did Unity. It's always there. You can go back.
It will always be there.
Yeah.
But I don't want to get in the way, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like now I'm trying to find like the right, like, well, not yet, but as time passes, like what's my right involvement versus like, I don't want to cast a shadow because naturally people are like, Mikey, what do you think? And I'm like, what do you think?
Yeah, that's good. That's good that you're letting it grow, letting people have like autonomy and like leadership and make it grow without you managing everything.
Yeah, it's tough to let it go, but letting it go is a big part of it. Like my therapist gave me this article or this poem about this like bow and arrow, and like you sort of pull back the arrow with the bow and then you like let it go, and then once you let it go you can't control, like you can aim it, you can sort of pull it back the right way and like get it all finagled until it's like what you think will be the best thing, but then once you let it go you can't like run after it or like maneuver it. It's already gone, so you just have to like trust that everything you did to like set it up is like the right thing. So, and it's also this idea that like parents don't own their kids.
I've heard that analogy used,
they have their kids but they don't own them, as much as some parents want to own the decisions of their kids. The kids have to make their own decisions. So I look at it like a parent and I'm like, this is my baby and it's going to university or something, so go ahead.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, you'll make bad decisions but you'll learn from them.
Yeah.
Everyone, I made terrible decisions, but I learned from it, so why would it be any different for this, right? And also what it took to build Unity is not what it's going to take to maintain it, or even take it in a new direction. They're completely different things. Like, you know, we just hired a new person. Her name's Rebecca Harrison, and she's amazing, and I'm really confident she's going to do great because she has everything it takes to run an organization like Unity. And it's very different than when we were growing it. It's not the same monster, right? We were just kids. Now we're like adults, whether we want to be or not, you know? So she's got all of the things we need to keep the ship going. And the team, like it's not even really just her. Our team is amazing. So everyone sort of holds up their individual part of the ship so that it balances. And, you know, with that, and the people in unity, I'm confident it'll live on in whatever way it was meant to, and if it doesn't, like, I hope it does, but if it doesn't, it wasn't meant to be either, and accepting things end too eventually, but right now it's set up to succeed. So
yeah, because you have the after school programs, the community programs, you have people giving their time and also their money to help you or help the organization run. So
100%. No, it's well set up. I've done everything I could possibly do to set it up for success. Like really even kind of crazy things like pulling out life insurance policies that if one day I died, that Unity would get a big donation, knock on wood. But I'm crazy a little bit. But we're good. Unity will be fine. It will be okay. Yes.
And now, do you have any idea what you want to do? Like, what are your passions? Where do you want to go with life?
I know what I'm passionate about. Like, I'm really interested in doing better in the mental health sector. Okay. Whatever that means, around helping people access the care that they need, helping people, have spaces where they can talk about this stuff, not just on like a public broadcast or a corporate, campaign, but actually like have conversations about it, not just retweet something, but actually say, hey, like, I'm dealing with anxiety and like I'm learning that friends around me are dealing with it too, and being able to actually feel like I'm supported by just feeling okay to like talk about it, versus saying, oh, I'm sick, I'm gonna miss a week of work, I have a cold. But it's like, I don't have a cold, I have anxiety, and that's why I'm missing work, and like then I can spark a conversation with 3 of our employees who might be going through the same thing, and all of a sudden, we feel like we're more safe even working at a place like Unity because we know that we take that stuff seriously. So I'm really, Unity aside, interested in starting new conversations around mental health. I'm also interested in like the potential for arts to have an impact in the world. So like beyond just arts for the sake of arts, which I completely appreciate. And, I love going to theater shows and, dance events and whatnot, but like actually creating a movement of like arts for impact, and like whether that's in education, healthcare, mental health, taking the idea that arts can impact people's lives in a significant way, sometimes more than we give it credit for, because there's not a lot of randomized controlled trial studies that show the connection between dance and therapy, or dance and
I guess there's some for music, like music and the brain, and music and therapy.
There are for sure, but I think there's a lot of work to be done to push that agenda, because it's so evident through things I've seen and people I've met that arts and dance and these things can create such a powerful community for people, and such an important part of their healing in whatever they're going through.
Yeah, for sure.
But sometimes it's not even considered. It's like the side product. It's like, okay, the last thing we're going to do is this. Now I get it. Like, what bleeds, reads, and you got to, put your attention to where things are first. But I think or what's the most in your face, but I think people are starting to realize that like prevention is a thing, and like there are things that can prevent you from getting to the point where you need to get cut open because you have this disease or that sort of problem. So that is my big sort of mission, is to like figure out a way to take the mental health conversation and the arts and sort of bring it together with all those sort of contacts and people and partners and even amazing staff that I've met along the way who like I know can like contribute to this vision. So that's one idea. I have like 20 ideas. Okay. But I don't want to give them all away on a podcast, because then people might steal them.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. I think even if someone does steal it, then it'll exist in the world, which would be a good thing. Sometimes we keep our ideas to ourselves and then never like share them, but that sort of open source sharing of ideas is actually what makes real change. So I actually do take that back. I do believe sharing your ideas really brings them into reality. And sometimes people keep their ideas forever to themselves and don't realize that's actually not solving the problem that we're trying to solve.
Yeah, it depends what the idea is. I think if it's something to help people, then you should share it as much as possible. If it's like a product you're creating and you're developing it, then you don't share that until it's more developed.
Yeah, true.
But
100%. Like, yeah, in the business context, doesn't necessarily make sense, but in like the nonprofit context or like the trying to make a difference in the world, definitely the latter. But even pushing that further, like in a business context, I believe that like corporations or companies should come together to, like, whether it's through their business or through their charitable giving, ideally through their business, more like Dove or like Unilever, the way they lead through by example through their actual products. But let's say it's not through their business, but their charitable contributions come together to actually make that real impact versus try to quantify something that's not really measurable, and just so they can look good to someone above them, trying to create this metric that they're measuring social impact, but really just like bring people together who are doing this stuff, let them come together and come up with these ideas that they're already have experience doing, versus trying to like say we're gonna reform education in the US and like use like a sort of tech model to implement a social program, you know?
Okay.
So like I would strongly encourage people who, you know, want to get involved in philanthropy or giving to consult the community as experts, not their experience as in scaling businesses or whatever, you know?
Yeah, for sure. The more grassroots you can make something, then the better. Because also the people on the floor like have the knowledge.
Yeah, it's if it's for someone, that someone should be involved. But we forget that when, you know, we're living in a corporate boardroom and we're sort of fueled by decisions that are, you know, maybe not really what's for community, but what's best for that business, or even that individual's ego might get in the way. So just acknowledging these things, I think, is the first step in saying, okay, let's have a conversation about this. We're not pointing fingers. It's more like by talking about it, we can acknowledge it. And by acknowledging it, we can do something about it. And to me, that's like the step to actually making an impact. Because sometimes people think that money just makes a difference, and it doesn't always. In fact, you know, any effort has a positive and negative effect. So if you put something out into the world, it has a chance of having a negative effect, even if it had an intended positive effect.
Okay.
And we don't think about that often, you know, the responsibility that we have when working with communities, from all angles, not just funders, but like, you know, any action has a reaction. And, you know, just because our intentions are good doesn't mean the outcomes will be good. I'm not saying that to scare people away from doing good stuff, but to just think twice, just like consult a couple more people in the community before you move forward with something, to involve people on your team from that community, to, you know, really make sure that and check in on a continuous basis that it's not causing that negative impact, that it's actually benefiting. And if it is, then change or stop, or, you know, just most people don't have that self-critical lens, and they just like, I'm trying to do my best and trying to do something good, so I'm just gonna do it, and like no matter what, this is what it is, you know. And it's a very dangerous sort of place to start from. But again, not to discourage anyone, it's just put that second thought before doing something good, you know.
So reflection and self-awareness,
always checking in with yourself, but checking in with the people around you, like, is this good? And even be willing to stop, you know. Like, I think that's the thing that nonprofits are like kind of never gonna really do, unfortunately, but like know when to close shop when either their mission is satisfied and they're done, and they actually 20 years ago set out to solve this problem and they solved it, then the whole point of nonprofits is to not exist eventually, because you have solved the social problem you seek to solve, in theory. But then there's often groups that will actually either solve that problem and then come up with another problem, which is fine because maybe they have the capacity and the resources to be well equipped to solve another problem, or they're just not hitting or solving this thing ever and using older ways of thinking and not updating those ways of thinking. So they're just kind of getting in the way, and they're sometimes taking away opportunity and funding from groups that are actually on the ground solving the problems. So either they should be partnering with those groups, or having real conversations around, like, are they still relevant, and is this the best way of solving this problem? But I mean, that's never going to happen.
I think anything can happen.
Yeah,
people can evaluate themselves, and nonprofit groups can do the same.
I think so. I just think that when it comes to politics and funding, people when
it's giant companies especially, or organizations, then it's more difficult. People
of influence, and then they sort of step back and say, well, wait a second, my reputation is on the line here, so we're going to keep this thing floating even though it doesn't completely make sense. It usually is not black and white, like it doesn't not make sense or completely make sense, but there's usually somewhere in the middle where, like, this is kind of like an old school way of doing this, but it works enough for us to get our key donors involved, so let's keep that going. I know this got this sort of side tangented into like a very intense, like, critical nonprofit conversation.
That's okay. You have the experience. You can talk about it.
Well, it's my own perspective. I don't think it's the right or wrong way, but I just think we need to challenge nonprofit sector more and challenge the leaders in the sector to challenge themselves and actually be more self-reflective than just like, did we hit our budget this year or did we not? It should be more like, are we doing the thing we're telling the people in the public that we're doing? Or are we at least getting closer to doing that thing? Versus just repeating this fundraising machine that just makes donors happy but doesn't actually get closer to solving that social challenge. And I'm not saying the social challenges need to be solved, nor do I mean that, but are you putting betterment towards the cause that you actually exist to address? This is an intense thought, but I don't know how you put a microphone in front of me and now and I'd be willing to have a conversation with anyone I thought was doing that, but it's also just a voice to hear it. If you think you're that person, not taking the time to self-reflect, like, take a moment, go away or do what you need to do to, like, connect with yourself and be honest about it. Like, I wouldn't have done Unity for 10 years if I didn't see the impact, if I didn't, like, not only visually but through evaluations and through people I've met, young people I've seen grow up and now come back as teachers and alumni and, like, actually run programs, get hired through us, and them telling me one-on-one, like, how Unity, like, impacted their lives, like, and then also through quantitative metrics. But I wouldn't have been doing it for 10 years. I would have stopped within year 2. So just that self-check. And now I'm even stopping because I realize maybe someone else's vision might be good to steer the ship in a new direction, right? So hopefully that's like a message to other people starting their own things, that they can, knowing when to step back and when to step forward. It's really important. And we only sometimes, as sort of ego-driven leaders, think step forward because that's what we're used to, but, like, sometimes stepping back gives space for someone else. I hope that I speak mostly from a place of personal experience, generally speaking, because I feel like I got nothing else to really say except what I've seen or what I've
and you've experienced quite a bit because you've had to reach out to so many different people while you were creating this organization and running it. So
and sometimes I'm, like, really impressed and I meet the best people, but sometimes I'm really frustrated and I'm like, oh, that's the way it's been and that's the way it's going to continue to be until new leaders come up and through the system, right? But we're not really training those leaders properly. So I don't know where they're going to come from. So maybe you guys or whoever's out there, like, we need to get some new leaders in the sector. And there's some great ones. Some of the best people I've ever met in my life are leaders in our sector. But also, you know, we're not sort of training the next generation of leaders in the nonprofit sector. So
how would you help change that? I guess through workshops, or
I'm down to spend time with anyone if they're interested and capable and, you know, driven to do that. And I do spend a lot of time with people. I spend a lot of time one-on-one meeting young people or people of all ages who are like driven to do something in the social sector, and just kind of like shooting the shit with them and saying like, look, what do you want to do? How do you want to do it? What are your barriers? How can I help, if at all? And sometimes I can't necessarily help, but I find generally just having another person as a sounding board is a good start, like sort of two-way mentorship where I'm learning from them and they're learning from me. But it's like this symbiotic like connection that you're like, whoa, just bouncing these ideas off of a complete stranger who isn't a funder or a, you know, someone who's directly invested, a staff member, just a complete stranger who just has a lot of opinions but has also experienced some of this stuff. We really vibe and create those trusted relationships. So I think that ultimately that might be another part of my next chapter, is like creating some sort of way of bringing together nonprofit leaders who can have a conversation, sometimes a confidential conversation that like they can just feel like they can ask those questions that you really can't ask anyone, especially if you're the leader of that organization. Like there's some questions you can't ask anyone, and you're like, well, I guess I got to figure this out myself. But you don't, and there are people, it's just hard to develop a relationship where you can like trust in someone who, with like your most personal scary secrets of like, shit, I got to make a decision and it's all on me, and if I screw this up, you know, I don't know what's going to happen to the organization tomorrow, right? So you really care about those decisions. So anyways, I would love to sort of, you know, be a sounding board for anyone who needs it, and maybe even in a more formal way, like one day, you know, create a network of people who are just like peer mentors or something like that.
For people who have to make those decisions, what advice would you give them?
Well, just trust in yourself. And I mean, assuming you've been doing this for a couple years or months or however long you've been doing it, I always think like whatever brought me this far was right. Yeah. So trust in what my decision-making process has been up until now to make this important decision. And, you know, you never know, like, you can't control the future. So like, you can't beat yourself up about like things you can't control in the end. It's just, it's impossible. Like, if something really bad happens, and bad things happen all the time, unfortunately, in life, it's just like, how do you respond to that and take it in? And for me, it was always, okay, I'm a logical person. I'm going to just trust I got this far somehow. So I'm going to use the same process to making that decision, whether it's asking a mentor or even just writing it down, and then make that decision and trust that it will be okay. Even if it doesn't end up being okay, which it several times didn't work out. And in that sense, the real sort of like lesson for me out of that was just persistence. Like, do it again and again and again until like it works, you know. And that's really what got me through like some of the more difficult times, and also like what made uni successful when the odds were against us. So persistence, like ridiculous, unwavering persistence.
Okay, nice. That's a good lesson. Yeah.
I mean, it worked for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So this was cool.
Awesome.
Yeah. Hopefully I didn't scare all of you people away from it's really a cool place to be.
Yeah.
You should join the nonprofit sector, and it's awesome, and it's scary, but everything's scary. It's just, there's a sense of reality that sometimes we don't have when we get involved in doing good things. And that's what I try to bring. I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm just trying to be like, this is kind of what you think you're signing up for, and this is like really some of the things you may experience along the way.
Yeah, because it's good to have like beautiful, good ideas and go with great intentions. But yeah, of course, we live in this world. Not everything is rainbows and unicorns. So
yeah, I love optimism. I'm a big fan of it, but I also am like secretly, or at least through this not so secretly, like a very big pessimist of everything.
Okay.
So it's like you're kind of like, I assume it's not good until I see it's good, which is a bad characteristic of mine, but that's helped me also work through some of the more difficult issues, because I'm like testing things before they see the light of day, in a sense.
Okay.
Yeah, and people too. I like kind of try to push and be like, so why are you really doing this?
Okay.
Or, and then
Yeah.
you get a response. So, I'm not trying to be a jerk.
No. But it's good because even the people listening, everyone has different personalities, right? Some people see the positive always. Some people don't. Some people are in the middle. Like, it's normal. We're humans. So it's good to have different perspectives.
Totally. And that's what makes the world amazing. And like, I would probably frame it for me more as cautiously optimistic.
Okay.
So I'm very optimistic, but very cautious. And I'm just kind of like preparing for anything, as I'm hopeful that things will go well, you know? Because if I'm too optimistic, I end up getting led down an alleyway and, then it just doesn't go well. Okay. Yeah. This is cool. Well, thank you so much for being with us. And where can people find you on social media? If you want to connect on Instagram, it's at BBoy Piecez with a Z at the end. On Twitter, same thing. unitycharity.com. You can't connect with me there anymore, but please check it out. It's an amazing thing. And then on social media, is it all at Unity Charity? At Unity Charity, no spaces, no funny spelling. Okay. Okay, awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, well, thank you so much. Thank you. This has been My Best Life podcast with Flavia Abadia and BBoy Piecez, a.k.a. Mike. Thank you. Awesome. Yay. That was fun. That's cool. Thank you. Yeah, it was awesome. That was very philosophical.